The star system of Orion was a quiet place. Planets moved in slow rhythm around a gentle sun, and stations floated like ornaments in the empty dark. Trade ships came and went on regular paths, carrying food, crystals, and light metals between colonies. The people of Orion lived without much worry. For many years nothing unusual had ever disturbed their calm skies. That changed one ordinary day when a signal appeared on the long-range sensors. It was faint at first, a strange echo on the edge of the system. The watch station near the outer ring caught it first. A young operator named Laro stared at the screen, wondering if it was just a faulty reading. Yet the signal grew stronger, sharper, and steadier. Something large was moving closer. Laro called his supervisor, who frowned as the display updated. The object was not shaped like any ship they knew. It was too long, too heavy, and it moved with a straight, unwavering path. It did not broadcast any friendly code. It did not match any design in the station's records. The supervisor gave the order to track it with care and send word to the council. Soon, every major station in the Orion system knew of the intruder. At first, the people thought it might be a stray freighter or an old probe drifting off course. But when the sensors painted a clearer image, voices began to rise in worry. This was no simple freighter. It was a warship. The design looked ancient, yet the lines were precise. The body was armored, the engines burned bright, and strange energy patterns flickered across its surface. The most curious thing was its origin. The ship was human. The Orion people knew of humans, though only from old records. Long ago, humans had traveled across wide stretches of the galaxy. They had traded, explored, and sometimes vanished into deep space. Few living people had ever seen one, and most thought of them as wanderers who kept to themselves. No one expected to see a human warship appear at the edge of their peaceful system. The Council of Orion gathered at once. Leaders of several species came together in the tall chamber above the capital planet. Their faces were tense as the projection of the ship hovered in the air before them. "It is only one vessel," said Merle, the eldest among them. "Perhaps it is lost." "Lost ships do not move with such purpose," replied Saren, who commanded the defense fleet. "Look at its path. It does not drift. It follows a line straight into our system. No ship moves like that unless the crew knows exactly where they are going." Others whispered about the strange power readings. The ship gave off more energy than its size suggested. It seemed alive, as if the engines carried secrets far beyond Orion technology. No one could explain it. In the outer system, ordinary citizens began to share the news. Traders sent messages across the networks. Families gathered near viewing decks, pointing at the distant light of the approaching vessel. Children asked questions their parents could not answer. Excitement and fear mixed together in every voice. The warship grew larger with every passing hour. It did not change course. It did not answer hails. It did not slow. Some believed it came as a messenger. Others thought it was a warning. A few even hoped it carried explorers who had returned after a long silence. On the second day of its approach, the council sent out a cautious signal. They spoke words of greeting in the common trade tongue. They asked the ship to explain its purpose. Silence came in return. The ship moved on. Yet there was something strange about that silence. It did not feel careless or empty. It felt deliberate, as though the ship chose not to speak until the time was right. This unsettled many of the council. A single vessel should not have such quiet strength. As the warship crossed the orbit of the fourth planet, small patrol ships followed at a safe distance. They reported no signs of weapons fire, no hostile actions. The human vessel simply continued forward, ignoring their presence. The patrol captains admitted that even though it had done nothing, they felt small in its shadow. By the third day, every eye in the system was watching. The ship had become the center of every story, every conversation, every gathering. The name human was spoken again and again, in tones of wonder and doubt. How had one old warship, alone, carried so much weight into the heart of Orin? The truth was still hidden, but all could sense that the arrival marked a beginning. The ship had not fired a single shot, nor spoken a single clear word, yet already it had shaken the calm of the Orin system. Something about its presence told them that nothing here would remain the same. And so, the lone human warship sailed forward, silent and unstoppable, carrying secrets that no one yet understood. The warship moved with steady rhythm, like a planet on a set path. Its engines glowed with calm light, not fierce, not loud, yet powerful enough to leave a trail of energy across the dark sky. Every station and every fleet in the Orin system had turned its sensors toward it. The watchers tried to learn everything they could. At first, they thought the ship would reveal itself if they studied it closely. But the more they scanned, the less they understood. Their beams of light bounced back empty. Their probes reported strange interference. It was as though the human vessel carried a cloak of silence around its frame, refusing to let others see inside. In the Academy of Sciences on the third planet, scholars gathered in a tall room filled with glowing screens. Dozens of eyes studied the shifting lines of data. One of them, a young thinker named Renal, leaned closer to the display. He whispered, "It blocks us without moving. This is not the way of ordinary shields. It is as if the ship does not allow us to even imagine its heart." The elder scholars agreed. They had studied hundreds of ships from across the stars. They knew how energy fields looked when they resisted scans. This was something else. It was neither defense nor attack. It was a quiet refusal, firm yet gentle, like a door that would not open no matter how politely one knocked. The fleets of nearby species also watched. Far across the trade routes, signals passed from one system to another. The word spread quickly, a human ship had returned. Old captains who had once heard tales of humans remembered their bold journeys. Some laughed at the thought of a single warship wandering into a system. Others felt unease, for they knew stories where one human ship had done the work of many. On Orin's outermost moon, young cadets trained for patrol duty. They stood in groups, looking through wide glass panels at the distant light of the vessel. Their instructor, a steady voice named Terrell, pointed at the glowing point in the dark sky. "Remember this moment," he said. "You may live long lives and never again see such a ship. It is old, yet it moves like no other. Learn from it. Watch how the universe changes when humans appear." The cadets whispered to each other. Some felt excitement, others nervousness. One cadet, a small-eyed youth named Myra, asked softly, "Why does it not speak?" Terrell paused, then answered, "Because it does not need to, at least not yet. There are times when silence is stronger than words." In the Capitol Council chamber, the leaders grew restless. They had sent more greetings, more polite questions, even offers of guidance through the system. The human ship ignored all of them. Not a single word returned. The silence began to feel heavy, like a shadow hanging across the system. Commander Saren pressed for action. "We must test it. If we cannot see inside, we must learn what it can do. It may be more dangerous than we imagine." But Elder Merle shook his head. "Danger is not always carried in weapons. Look again. It has not harmed us. It has not claimed our worlds. It only moves forward. Perhaps it is we who are being tested. The room fell quiet. The truth of Merle's words unsettled them. The ship's refusal to act made them reflect on their own actions. They had fleets ready, they had stations prepared, but the human vessel treated them as if they were not even obstacles. Meanwhile, across the system, ordinary people kept their eyes on the sky. Traders halted in mid-journey, choosing to wait until the warship passed. Children drew pictures of the mysterious vessel and asked teachers to tell them old stories of humans. Singers began to weave the name human into songs, giving the tale shape before it had even ended. As the warship crossed deeper into Oran space, analysts compared its path with star maps. The line was exact, almost mathematical. It did not wander. It did not shift. It moved toward a point between two inner planets. No one knew why. Some thought it was seeking something left behind long ago. Others believed it was heading toward a meeting yet to come. One night on the second planet, Renal, the young scholar, stood outside the academy and looked up at the sky. The warship was just a bright spark against the black, but it drew his gaze like a magnet. He thought about its silence, its steady pace, its strange power. It carries more than metal and fuel, he murmured. It carries memory. It carries meaning. That is why it cannot be stopped. Across the Oran system, watchers of every kind, leaders, cadets, scholars, citizens, kept their focus on the same light in the sky. They did not yet know what the warship wanted, but they felt its presence shaping their thoughts. The longer it moved forward, the more it seemed less like a visitor and more like a message written across the stars. And still, the lone human warship did not slow. The human warship moved deeper into the Oran system, steady and unchanged. Its engines glowed like a soft flame that never dimmed. The closer it came to the inner worlds, the greater the tension grew among the people. Fleets shadowed its path, stations turned all their sensors toward it, and the council argued over what to do next. At last, they decided they could not remain silent. A message had to be sent once more, but this time with more care and respect. The council gathered their best linguists and historians. They searched old records for the few human words still remembered from the days of trade and travel. Slowly, a greeting was shaped. It was simple: travelers of Earth, we welcome you to the system of Oran. Please state your purpose, and we will guide you safely. The message was sent on every open frequency. The fleets listened. The stations waited. Even citizens across the planets leaned close to receivers, hoping to hear the human voice. For long hours, there was nothing. The warship moved forward without reply, and many feared it would remain forever silent. Then, when hope had nearly faded, the answer came. It was a voice unlike any they had known. Calm, steady, and deep, it filled the channels like a wave that could not be broken. The words were clear, simple, and direct. Passing through. Do not obstruct. Only 6 words, yet they echoed across the system. The council chamber fell silent as the message repeated once more before fading. Children on distant moons whispered the words as though they were part of a new song. Traders froze in mid-flight, staring at their consoles. Even the fleets, hardened by years of training, felt a weight in those words. Merle, the eldest of the council, closed his eyes and said, "It is not a threat. It is a statement. This ship has chosen its path, and nothing will turn it aside." Commander Saren frowned. "It refuses our guidance. That is bold, even careless. Who speaks to an entire system in so few words? But Renal, the young scholar, who was allowed to sit in the council chamber as an observer, leaned forward with shining eyes. It speaks like one who knows where they are going. The message is not careless. It is complete. Passing through, do not obstruct. What more needs to be said? The council argued through the night. Some wished to demand more answers. Others warned against pressing further. They could not agree. Yet the ship itself seemed unaffected by their debate. It continued its path with perfect calm, as though it had not spoken to win trust or cause fear, but simply to remind them it had no need to explain. In the training halls, the young cadets repeated the 6 words as a lesson. Their instructor Terrell told them, sometimes strength is not shown in how much one says, but in how little one needs to say. The cadets listened, their faces thoughtful. To them, the human ship was not just a visitor. It had become a teacher. Meanwhile, the fleets shadowed the vessel more closely now, curious about how it would react. A pair of patrol craft moved nearer, broadcasting respectful greetings. The warship gave no answer, but neither did it show any sign of hostility. It simply moved as though the patrol ships were not there at all. The patrol captains reported back with the same conclusion: the ship behaved as if nothing in the system could matter to it. Among the common people, stories began to grow. Some said the humans had returned with great knowledge. Others whispered that the warship was unmanned, guided by old memory alone. A few even believed it was a guardian ship, built to wander forever and remind civilizations of something important. One evening, as the ship passed near the orbit of the 5th planet, children on the colony there gathered at the tallest hill. They pointed at the bright streak of light in the night sky. To them, it was not frightening. It was a wonder. One child said, "It moves like a star that remembers where it must go." The adults nearby listened and found the child's words wiser than their own fears. Back in the council chamber, Merle spoke again. "We must accept that this ship is not ours to guide. It does not ask for our help, and it does not bend to our rules. Let it pass. If it wished to bring harm, it would not have spoken with such calm. If it wished to stay, it would not move forward without pause. Its purpose lies beyond us." The council finally agreed. They would not block its path. Fleets would continue to watch, but no ship would move to stand in its way. The Orange system would let the human vessel travel as it wished. And so the warship sailed on, silent again after its single message. Yet in that silence, the system was louder than it had ever been. The 6 words had filled every heart with questions, wonder, and unease. No matter where it went next, Orin would never forget the day a human ship spoke with such certainty. The lone human warship drifted closer to the inner system. It passed the orbits of the trade stations and moved near colonies where thousands of families lived. Everywhere it went, eyes followed. Some looked with fear, some with wonder, and some with a kind of respect they could not yet explain. Patrol fleets shadowed it as always, but their commanders could not hide their unease. The vessel had answered once, and then no more. It traveled as though the entire Orange system was only space it needed to cross, nothing more. Curiosity grew stronger, and the council ordered small harmless tests. They wanted to see how the human ship might react if touched, even in the gentlest way. The first test came from a science vessel near the orbit of the 3rd planet. It sent a wave of harmless energy, no stronger than the light of a beacon. The signal touched the warship, but before it could scan the surface, it bent away as if the ship itself redirected it. The energy returned in a soft curve, fading into space without effect. Reports spread quickly. The scholars shook their heads in disbelief. It does not block, one said. It guides. The wave is returned as if it was never meant to strike at all. A second test came later, when a small drone placed a glowing buoy in the ship's path. The buoy emitted harmless light, meant only to distract. The warship approached without slowing. As it neared, the buoy's light dimmed and went dark. By the time the ship passed, the buoy floated silently, powerless. Moments later, the light returned as if nothing had happened. "Did you see?" whispered Myra, one of the cadets watching through a patrol window. "It touched nothing, yet the buoy obeyed." Their instructor Terrell only nodded. "This is not the work of ordinary machines. It carries an order we do not understand." The third test was tried with great caution. A cruiser released a gentle pulse of magnetic energy near the warship, not against it, but around it, as if to create a shifting field. For a moment, the sensors on the cruiser flickered. Lights dimmed, then brightened again. When the data cleared, it showed something strange. The warship had not resisted. It had not even reacted. The field that should have disturbed it simply did not exist within its space. Renal, the young scholar, studied the records that night. He watched the patterns again and again. "It is not that the ship is strong," he whispered to himself. "It is that it is untouchable. It does not push back. It simply remains as it is, no matter what reaches for it." The council grew restless. Commander Sarin pressed his case again. "This vessel walks through our system as if we are shadows. If it wished to, it could pass through 100 fleets, and none could stop it. We must prepare in case others follow." But Merle, calm as ever, shook his head. "If it wished to strike, it would have done so. Its silence is not a sword. It is a message. The power we see is not for us. It is for what lies beyond." The common people whispered in every home and gathering place. Stories of the tests spread faster than facts. Some said the ship bent light with its will. Others said it swallowed energy into a hidden core. Many believed it was not a warship at all, but a guardian built with purpose no one could yet guess. Children on the moons gave the vessel names of their own. Some called it the Silent Star. Others called it the Unmoving Flame. To them, it was not frightening. It was mysterious and beautiful. Meanwhile, the warship continued on its path. It ignored stations, fleets, and colonies. It did not speak, it did not turn, it did not falter. It moved as though guided by a memory stronger than time itself. Renal shared his thoughts with the scholars. "This ship is not only a machine. It carries a meaning. Its power is not shown in what it destroys, but in what it refuses to allow near it. We may not understand, but we must see it for what it is. This is not a challenge. This is a reminder." As the days passed, the warship came closer to the heart of Orin. The people could see it clearly now from the surface of their worlds, a bright point moving across the night sky. Its presence no longer felt like an accident. It felt like a story unfolding before them, a story that would be remembered long after the ship had gone. The unseen power of the human vessel had spoken without sound, without fire, without threat. It had shown them that strength could exist in silence, that certainty could be greater than force. And still, the ship did not slow. The human warship moved past the fifth planet, steady as ever. Then, for the first time since entering the system, it slowed. Its engines dimmed, and its path curved toward a barren world that circled close to the sun. The barren world was small and gray. Long ago, some miners had dug into its surface, but no one lived there now. Dust storms swept across its plains, and craters covered its face. It was the last place anyone expected the human ship to notice. Yet there it was, halting near the orbit, turning its sensors toward the silent planet. Every watcher in the system leaned forward. Fleets steadied their positions. The council held its breath. What was it searching for? Hours passed. The ship hovered above the gray world, scanning with quiet pulses. At last, something new happened. A signal burst across every frequency, strong enough to reach even the smallest receiver in the system. Unlike before, it was not only a short reply. This time, it was a message for all to hear. The voice was human again, calm and steady. Yet now it carried more than words. It carried weight, as if each sound was a stone laid upon the heart. Once there was a darkness, the voice said. It rose from places unknown. It sought every world and every sky. Few stood against it. We did. We held it here, and we endured. It has not yet ended. It sleeps. One day it may wake again. Be ready. The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. Silence filled the system once more. No one moved for a long while. Citizens across the planet stared at their screens in wonder. The council chamber was so quiet that the hum of machines could be heard. In every training hall, in every academy, in every home, the words echoed. Renal whispered first, "It fought something here. Long ago, the humans faced an enemy that we have forgotten." His voice trembled, not with fear but with awe. They stood alone, and they remember even when we do not. Commander Saren rose from his seat in the council chamber. If this is true, then we have been blind. We lived in peace, but only because others held the storm away from us. That ship carries a warning, not for today, but for tomorrow. Merle nodded slowly. Yes. The warship is not here to harm us. It is here to remind us. It does not ask for thanks. It does not demand fear. It only speaks of duty. The people of Orin felt the same. Families sat together and repeated the words aloud. Teachers told their students to write the message in simple lines so it would not be forgotten. Children carried those words like treasures, whispering them to each other as if they were part of an ancient song. The fleets remained near the warship, but now their reports carried a new tone. It does not act like an enemy, one captain said. It acts like a messenger. Its weapons are not aimed at us. Its silence is a shield, not a threat. As the ship drifted away from the barren world, the scholars gathered once more. They searched the old records for signs of the darkness spoken of in the message. Fragments of stories appeared, tales of vanished colonies, of unexplained battles, of quiet places that had gone dark. None of the fragments were clear, but they pointed to a truth the system had ignored. Something had once moved across the stars, and humans had faced it. Renal spoke to his fellow scholars with shining eyes. We thought the humans were wanderers without purpose. We were wrong. They are guardians who chose silence instead of fame. Their ship is proof. Even when they stand alone, they carry the memory of what must be done. The warship did not wait for answers. Its engines brightened again, and it continued its path toward the far side of the system. No more words came from it. No more signals followed. Yet the Orin people no longer saw it as a silent intruder. To them, it was now a bearer of truth. In the homes of miners, in the halls of traders, in the schools of children, the words of the message spread. Once there was a darkness. We stood. Be ready. The words became a chant, a reminder that peace was not something given, but something protected. The human ship sailed on, silent once more. But its message remained behind, etched into the hearts of all who heard it. Orin would never forget that the calm of their system was not only the gift of stars and time. It was also the result of human memory, carried forward in one lone warship that could not be stopped. After the message from the human warship passed through the system, life on Orin changed in quiet but deep ways. The words lingered in every mind, repeating themselves without sound. Once there was a darkness. We stood. Be ready. In the council chamber, discussions shifted. No longer were they just worried about the ship. Now they talked about preparation, about learning, and about understanding what had been hidden in the past. Commander Saren addressed the council, his voice steady. We cannot ignore the warning. If humans stood against a darkness long ago, then we must understand what it means for us today. We must awaken to the knowledge that we have ignored. Elder Merle nodded. Yes. The ship has passed, yet it leaves a seed behind. The words it spoke are not only history. They are a guide. Our fleets, our scientists, and our citizens must see this clearly. We must not wait for shadows to reach us. In the academy, scholars pored over the archives. Renal and his colleagues worked day and night. They searched through old records of explorers, traders, and miners. They discovered fragments of lost missions, hints of distant battles, and records of strange signals sent from regions beyond Orin. None of it was complete, but all of it pointed to the truth the human ship had spoken of. Humans had stood alone, and they had endured. The young cadets, who had first seen the warship, felt a new energy in their training. They practiced with purpose, repeating the words of the message in their minds. We stood. Be ready. It became a mantra, reminding them that courage was more than strength. It was choice. It was knowing that what one does matters even when others cannot see. Families in the system spoke of the human ship at every meal and in every home. Children asked questions their parents could not fully answer, and parents smiled, knowing that something remarkable had passed through their skies. It was not a warning of war. It was a lesson in endurance, resolve, and vigilance. Traders and explorers shared stories of humans they had never met but had read about in records. They spoke of their journeys, their courage, and their ability to face impossible odds. Many were inspired to prepare better, not with fear, but with understanding. They worked on new designs for ships, improved communication networks, and more careful mapping of the system's paths. Even the fleets felt the change. Patrol captains who had once followed the human warship in tension now followed it in wonder. They thought less about stopping it and more about learning from it. One captain, speaking in a quiet tone to her crew, said, "We do not know what lies ahead, but we now know that courage is not measured in numbers. It is measured in resolve." Across Orin, communities began to cooperate in ways they had not before. Scientists and engineers shared research freely. Traders offered supplies for exploration missions. Families encouraged children to learn the old histories and to remember the lessons of the human ship. The system felt alive in a way it had not felt before. Renal reflected on all he had seen. The ship carried a message beyond speech, he told his fellow scholars. It reminded us that we are responsible for our own safety, that we must watch and learn. Humans faced danger without asking for help, and they still endure. That is why we feel awake now. That is why we can see what was hidden. The cadets, inspired by this new awakening, held a ceremony. They raised flags on the tallest towers and spoke the words of the message together. Once there was a darkness. We stood. Be ready. Their voices carried across training grounds, reaching the ears of citizens, families, and travelers. It became a promise, not only for themselves but for all who lived in Orin. Even though the human warship had left the barren world behind and sailed toward the outer reaches, its presence continued to influence everything. The system felt a quiet pulse, a heartbeat of vigilance and preparation. Every person who had seen the vessel or heard its message felt a connection to something greater, a sense of guardianship that humans alone seemed to carry. And so Orin awoke. It did not wake with fear, nor with a sense of weakness. It woke with understanding. The people remembered the lone human warship, not as a visitor who passed, but as a teacher who had reminded them of courage, endurance, and the value of readiness. The lessons were theirs to carry forward, and they would carry them well. The human vessel continued its journey, calm, silent, and unstoppable, leaving behind an Orin system forever changed. The human warship moved away from the inner planets of the Orin system. Its engines glowed steadily, a silent signal of power and purpose. The ship carried on, never turning back, leaving behind planets, fleets, and citizens who had watched its journey in awe. Though it was gone from sight, its presence remained. The councils, the scholars, the cadets, and ordinary citizens spoke of it constantly. The words it had shared, the quiet strength it had shown, and the calm way it had moved through the system had all left a mark that would not fade. Commander Saren spoke to the fleets one last time before the warship disappeared from the sensor grids. "We may never see it again," he said. "But what it taught us is more important than any sighting. One vessel, moving alone, can change how an entire system thinks and acts. We must carry that lesson with us." In schools across the planets, teachers wrote the story of the human ship in simple lines for children to read. They told how it had passed without harm, how it had sent a warning, and how it had reminded all of Orin that courage and vigilance were more important than strength alone. Children copied the words carefully into books, promising to remember them as they grew older. In the council chamber, Elder Merle reflected on the weeks since the arrival. "No fleet could have stopped it," he said quietly. "Not because of weapons, but because of resolve. It moved with certainty and purpose, and that is stronger than any force. Its legacy is not in what it did, but in what it made us see." Renal and his fellow scholars worked tirelessly to record everything about the encounter. They studied the energy readings, the paths the warship had taken, and the small signals it had sent. But most important of all, they recorded the lessons it had left behind. The warship had reminded them that knowledge, courage, and endurance mattered more than size, numbers, or power. Across the colonies, people found new ways to cooperate. Traders shared supplies for exploration. Families encouraged their children to learn the histories of humans and the tales of past adventures. Communities worked together to prepare for challenges that might come, not out of fear, but out of responsibility. The system had become stronger, wiser, and more connected because of the lone human vessel. Even the cadets, who had watched the ship from the outer moons, felt its lessons deep in their hearts. Terrell, their instructor, spoke to them one last time. "Remember what you have seen," he said. "Strength is not measured by what you can destroy. It is measured by what you choose to protect, by what you endure, and by how you act when the world seems silent. The humans have shown us this. Carry it forward." Over time, the story of the human warship became legend. Songs were sung about it in quiet towns and bustling cities. Artists painted its image in bright colors across walls and buildings. The story traveled beyond Orin, carried by traders to distant systems, always told with the same wonder and respect. People began to call it the Silent Guardian. It was no longer just a ship. It had become a symbol of endurance, wisdom, and courage. Its journey reminded all who heard the tale that even one individual, or one vessel, could change the course of many lives simply by moving with purpose. Years later, when children asked their elders about the day the human ship came, parents spoke of it as a lesson rather than an event. It was not a threat, they said. It was a reminder. Humans have the strength to stand alone when needed, and they carry a memory of what must be done. That is why even one ship cannot be stopped. The fleets continued to patrol the system, not to prepare for battle, but to remain vigilant. The scholars continued to study, to learn, and to teach the younger generations. The cadets grew into leaders, carrying the words of the human warship in their hearts. Every part of Oran had changed, quietly but permanently, because of the lesson left by one lone vessel. And somewhere beyond the system, the human warship continued its journey through the stars. Silent, steady, unstoppable, it carried with it the memory of countless worlds, the echoes of battles fought long ago, and the promise that courage and resolve could endure anywhere in the galaxy. The Oran system would never forget the day a lone human warship entered its skies. It would never forget the lesson it left behind. And for generations to come, the people would remember that strength is more than power. It is certainty, endurance, and the quiet will to move forward even when no one is watching. The human ship was gone from sight, but its legacy would remain forever.